The morning sun painted the small town of Millbrook in soft golden colors. Miracle Thompson, 47 years old, opened the door to her bookstore. The bell above the door made a gentle sound as she stepped inside. This was her world now, quiet, peaceful, and safe. She walked between the tall shelves filled with books. Her fingers touched the covers softly. Romance novels, mystery stories, children's books, and cookbooks filled every corner. This little store had become her sanctuary after everything that happened 5 years ago. Miracle was not always a bookstore owner. She used to be Captain Thompson of the city fire department. For 22 years, she had run into burning buildings while others ran out. She had saved hundreds of lives, but one terrible day changed everything. She tried not to think about that day. The apartment building. The family trapped on the 4th floor. The ceiling that fell too soon. The little girl she could not reach in time. The nightmares started after that. The fear, the guilt, the feeling that she had failed when people needed her most. So she left. She sold her house in the city, took her savings, and bought this small bookstore in Millbrook. Population, 2,847. Here, nobody knew about her past. Here, she was just Miracle, the friendly bookstore lady who recommended good books and made excellent coffee. Mrs. Henderson walked into the store. She was 73 and read 3 romance novels every week. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Henderson said. "Do you have anything new for me?" "I have the perfect book," Miracle replied with a warm smile. "It just came in yesterday." She handed Mrs. Henderson a book with a beautiful cover showing a castle and a handsome prince. "Oh, this looks wonderful. You always know exactly what I want to read." As Mrs. Henderson paid for her book, she chatted about the weather and her garden. Miracle listened carefully. She had learned that in small towns, listening was just as important as talking. After Mrs. Henderson left, Miracle made herself a cup of coffee and sat behind the counter. She opened a book about mountain climbing. Reading about adventures was enough for her now. She did not need real excitement in her life anymore. The day passed slowly and peacefully. A few customers came and went. The mailman brought packages of new books. A teenager asked for help with a school project about famous authors. Normal, quiet things that made Miracle feel safe and useful. At 5 o'clock, she closed the store and walked home to her small apartment above the bakery. The building was old, but comfortable. Her apartment had 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room filled with more books. She cooked a simple dinner and watched the evening news on her small television. The reporter talked about a fire in the next state. Miracle quickly changed the channel. She watched a comedy show instead. Before bed, she stood at her window looking at the main street of Millbrook. The streetlights made everything look peaceful. A few people walked their dogs. Mr. Garcia from the restaurant was closing up for the night. Everything was calm and predictable. This was the life she had chosen. A quiet life where the most dangerous thing that could happen was a paper cut from turning book pages. She had given up being a hero. She just wanted to be normal now. Saturday morning arrived bright and sunny. Miracle opened her bookstore as usual, but the town felt different. People were hurrying around carrying flowers, decorations, and fancy clothes. Today was the big day. Sarah Martinez was marrying Tom Wilson at the community center. Sarah worked at the town's only bank, and Tom taught at the elementary school. Everyone in Millbrook loved them. They had been together since high school, and their wedding was the social event of the year. Almost the entire town was invited. "Are you coming to the wedding tonight?" asked Jenny, a young woman who worked at the post office. She had come to buy a wedding gift, a cookbook for the new couple. "I don't think so," Miracle replied. "I'm not really a party person." "Oh, come on. Everyone will be there. Sarah personally invited you. She said you've been so kind since you moved here. The whole community center will be decorated beautifully. There will be dancing and amazing food from Garcia's restaurant. Miracle smiled politely but shook her head. I prefer quiet evenings at home, but please give Sarah and Tom my best wishes. Jenny looked disappointed, but did not push further. This was one thing people in Millbrook had learned about Miracle. She was friendly and helpful, but she kept to herself when it came to big social events. Throughout the day, more people stopped by the bookstore. Many were picking up last-minute gifts or simply too excited about the wedding to concentrate on normal activities. The community center looks amazing, said Mr. Park, who owned the hardware store. They've put lights everywhere. It looks like a fairy tale. Miracle nodded and smiled, but inside she felt a familiar anxiety. Large gatherings made her nervous now. Too many people in one place. Too many things that could go wrong. She was much happier in her quiet bookstore. As evening approached, the town became unusually quiet. Cars were parked all around the community center. Through her store window, Miracle could see people in beautiful dresses and suits walking toward the building. Music and laughter floated through the air. She closed the store early and went upstairs to her apartment. She made herself a sandwich and settled down with a book. Outside, she could hear the sounds of celebration, music, laughter, and joy. Part of her wanted to join them, but a bigger part felt safer staying home. Around 8 o'clock, the parties seemed to be getting louder. The music was more lively, and she could hear people talking and laughing in the street as they moved between the community center and the parking area. Miracle tried to focus on her book, but she found herself looking out the window frequently. The community center was visible from her apartment. It was indeed beautiful, covered in tiny white lights that twinkled like stars. She could see shadows of people dancing through the large windows. For a moment, she remembered what it felt like to be part of a community celebration. In her old life, she had gone to the fire department's annual dinners and holiday parties. She had friends who would drag her out dancing even when she was tired from work. She had been part of something bigger than herself. But that was before the fear took over, before she decided that the safest way to live was alone. She closed her book and went to make some tea. As the water boiled, she looked out the kitchen window toward the community center again. The building looked so warm and welcoming. All those happy people celebrating love and new beginnings. Maybe Jenny was right. Maybe she should have gone. Maybe it was time to take small steps toward being part of the community again. The kettle whistled, interrupting her thoughts. She made her tea and returned to the living room. She would read for another hour, then go to bed early. Tomorrow would be a normal, quiet Sunday. She had no idea that in less than an hour, everything would change. She had no idea that her quiet life was about to end, and the hero she thought she had buried was about to return. At 9:15 p.m., Miracle was reading in her favorite chair when she smelled something strange. It was faint at first, just a hint of something burning that was not quite right. Not like food cooking or a fireplace. This smell was sharper, more chemical. She put down her book and walked to the window. The community center looked normal from the outside. The lights were still twinkling, and she could still hear music and laughter. But the smell was getting stronger. Miracle's old training kicked in without her realizing it. She opened her apartment door and stepped into the hallway. The smell was definitely coming from outside, and it was getting worse every minute. She went downstairs and stepped out onto the street. Now she was sure. Something was burning, and it was not supposed to be burning. The smell had that particular sharpness that came from electrical fires. Insulation, plastic, and wire coatings burning together. Her heart started beating faster, but not from fear. It was the old, familiar feeling she had not experienced in 5 years. The feeling of knowing that people might be in danger, and she was the only one who recognized it. She walked quickly toward the community center. As she got closer, she could see a faint haze in the air that had not been there before. The smell was much stronger now. She looked up at the building's roofline and saw something that made her blood run cold. Thin wisps of smoke were starting to seep out from under the roof tiles near the electrical connections. The old building's wiring was overloaded from all the extra lights and sound equipment for the wedding. Something had overheated, and now it was starting to burn. Inside the building, 180 people were dancing, eating, and celebrating. They had no idea what was happening above their heads. Miracle stood frozen for a moment. Every instinct she had developed over 22 years as a firefighter was screaming at her to act. But the fear that had controlled her life for 5 years was screaming just as loudly, telling her to run, to call for help, to let someone else handle it. The smoke was getting thicker. In a few minutes, it would be visible to everyone, but by then, it might be too late. Old buildings like this one could go up very fast once the fire really got started. She thought about little Sarah Martinez in her beautiful white dress, about Tom Wilson and his proud parents, about Mrs. Henderson and Mr. Park and Jenny from the post office, about all the good people who had welcomed her to this town and accepted her quiet ways without asking questions. They were all inside that building. Miracle took a deep breath and made her choice. She ran toward the main entrance of the community center. The moment she opened the door, she was hit by a wall of sound, music, laughter, conversation, and the clinking of glasses. The wedding reception was in full swing. The bride and groom were on the dance floor, surrounded by family and friends. Everyone looked so happy. But Miracle could smell the smoke much more strongly now that she was inside. She looked up at the ceiling and saw what she had expected. Thin streams of smoke beginning to filter down from the light fixtures. She had maybe 10 minutes before this became a disaster. Maybe less. Miracle walked quickly to the bandstand where the DJ was playing music. She tapped him on the shoulder. "Excuse me, I need you to turn off the music right now," she said firmly. The DJ looked confused. "Lady, the party's just getting started. I can't just—" "There's smoke coming from the ceiling," Miracle said, pointing upward. "We need to evacuate this building immediately." The DJ looked up and saw the smoke. His face went pale. Without another word, he cut the music. The sudden silence was shocking. 180 people turned to look at the bandstand, confused and curious. Miracle took the microphone. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady and strong. "Everyone, please listen to me carefully," she announced. "I need you all to move toward the exits right now. There is a fire starting in the building's electrical system. We need to get everyone outside as quickly and safely as possible." For a moment, nobody moved. Then people started looking up and seeing the smoke. Someone screamed. Someone else shouted, "Fire!" And then everyone started moving at once. This was the moment Miracle had been dreading. The moment when calm people became a panicked crowd. She had seen it before, and she knew how deadly it could be. "Please stay calm," she called into the microphone. "Move toward the exits, but do not run. Help the people next to you. We have time if we stay organized." But her voice was lost in the noise of 180 people, all trying to leave through 2 exits at the same time. Miracle jumped down from the bandstand and moved into the crowd. Her old training took over completely now. She could see the entire situation like a map in her mind, where people were bunching up, where the exits were getting clogged, who needed help. "Form lines at each exit," she called out, her voice carrying over the noise. "Do not push. Parents, keep hold of your children." She saw Mrs. Henderson near the back of the room, looking confused and frightened. Miracle pushed through the crowd to reach her. "Mrs. Henderson, come with me," Miracle said, taking the older woman's arm gently but firmly. "We're going to walk to the side exit together." As they moved through the crowd, Miracle continued giving directions. "You 3, help that man with the walking cane. Ladies, leave the purses, just get out. Sir, please stop pushing. The smoke was getting thicker. What had been thin wisps 5 minutes ago was now a visible haze throughout the room. Miracle could hear crackling sounds from above the ceiling tiles. The fire was spreading through the building's old wooden frame. She got Mrs. Henderson safely to the side exit, then turned back to help others. The main entrance was clogged with people, but the side exit was moving more smoothly. She guided groups of people toward the less crowded door. "Sarah! Tom!" she called to the bride and groom, who were standing in the middle of the room looking lost. "Help me get people organized." "Tom, you take the main door. Sarah, help people find the side exit." The young couple immediately understood and began helping. Tom's voice boomed across the room. "Everyone going out the main door, form 2 lines." 2 lines. Sarah, still in her wedding dress, began guiding elderly guests and families with small children toward the side exit. Her white dress was already getting dirty from the smoke, but she did not seem to care. Miracle continued moving through the crowd, her eyes constantly checking the ceiling. The smoke was definitely getting worse. She estimated they had maybe 5 more minutes before conditions became dangerous. Most people were moving toward the exits now, but there were still problems. A woman had fallen near the main entrance and people were trying to help her up, causing a bottleneck. A group of teenagers were standing near the refreshment table, seemingly unsure what to do. "Teenagers!" Miracle shouted. "Help that woman by the door, then get out yourselves." They immediately ran to help. Miracle continued scanning the room. She counted heads, estimated how many people were still inside, watched for anyone who might be trapped or injured. The woman by the main entrance was back on her feet and moving toward the exit. The flow of people was getting better. Miracle allowed herself a moment of hope. They were going to get everyone out safely. Then she heard a sound that made her heart stop, a loud cracking noise from directly overhead. She looked up and saw flames visible through a gap in the ceiling tiles. A section of the ceiling near the back corner of the room was starting to sag. "Everyone away from the back corner!" she yelled. "Stay away from the back of the room!" Most people were already near the exits by now, but there were still about 20 people scattered around the room. Some were looking for lost items, some were helping others, some were just moving slowly. Miracle ran to the back of the room to make sure no one was in danger from the sagging ceiling. As she reached the corner, she heard another loud crack, followed by a whooshing sound. She looked up just in time to see a section of burning ceiling tile fall directly toward the main entrance. It landed right in front of the doorway, blocking the exit with burning debris. People screamed and backed away from the flames. Now there was only one way out, the side exit, and there were still 15 people inside, including Miracle herself. "Everyone to the side exit, now!" she commanded. "Stay low under the smoke!" But as she turned toward the side exit, her heart sank. More burning debris had fallen, and this piece had landed right in front of the side door. Both exits were now blocked. They were trapped. The room filled with screams and cries of fear. Smoke was getting thicker by the minute, and both exits were blocked by burning debris. Miracle felt the familiar grip of panic trying to take hold of her mind, but she forced it down. These people needed her to think clearly. She quickly counted the people still inside. 7 men, 6 women, 1 teenager, and 1 elderly man with a cane. 14 people plus herself. They were scattered around the room, some coughing from the smoke, others calling out the names of family members who had hopefully made it outside. "Everyone, come to me!" Miracle called out. "Get to the center of the room, away from the walls!" The group gathered around her. She could see fear in their faces, but also hope. They were looking to her for answers, for leadership, just like her firefighter crew used to do. "Are we going to die?" asked Maria Santos, a young mother who worked at the grocery store. No, Miracle said firmly. We are not going to die. But I need everyone to listen to me and do exactly what I say. Can you all do that? Everyone nodded. Even in their fear, they recognized the authority in her voice. First, we need to get lower, Miracle explained. Heat and smoke rise. The air near the floor will be cleaner and cooler. Everyone sit down or crouch. The group immediately followed her instructions. Now, does anyone have water bottles or any kind of cloth? Miracle asked. Several people had small water bottles from the wedding reception. 2 women had decorative scarves. The teenager had a cotton bandana in his pocket. Wet the cloth with the water and hold it over your nose and mouth, Miracle instructed. This will help filter the smoke. Share the cloths with people who don't have any. As people were following her instructions, Miracle was studying the room. She needed to find the safest place for them to wait for rescue, and she needed to figure out if there was any other way out. The building was old, built in the 1940s. The walls were solid brick and concrete block. The ceiling was wooden beams with plaster and tile. The fire had started in the electrical system and was now spreading through the wooden frame above the ceiling. She looked at the windows, but they were too high and too small. Even if they could reach them, the windows were the old-fashioned kind that did not open easily. Breaking them would be dangerous, and would also let more oxygen into the room, feeding the fire. Mrs. Patterson, Miracle said to an older woman in the group, you've lived here a long time. Do you know if this building has any other exits? Any back doors or emergency exits? There used to be a door that led to the kitchen area, Mrs. Patterson replied, but I think they blocked it off years ago when they renovated. Miracle looked in the direction Mrs. Patterson was pointing. There was indeed a section of wall that looked different from the rest. Newer paint, slightly different color. It had probably been a doorway once. Stay here, everyone, Miracle said. Keep your cloths over your faces and stay low. I'm going to check something. She crawled over to the blocked doorway and examined it closely. Behind the newer drywall, she could feel empty space. There was definitely a room or hallway back there. But breaking through the wall would be noisy, dusty, and might weaken the building's structure. She returned to the group. The smoke was getting thicker, and she could hear more crackling and popping from above. They did not have much time. Listen, she said to the group. I used to be a firefighter. I know about fires and how buildings behave when they burn. This building is old and solid. The main structure will hold for a while longer. The fire department will be here soon, and they will get us out. How do you know? Asked the teenager, whose name was Alex. Because this is what I used to do, Miracle replied. I used to rescue people from fires. And I promise you, firefighters are already on their way. Someone outside has called 911. They are coming. As if responding to her words, they heard sirens in the distance. The sound brought immediate relief to everyone's faces. See? Miracle said with a smile. Help is coming. Now we just need to stay safe until they arrive. But even as she spoke confidently to the group, Miracle was worried. The sirens sounded like they were still far away. Millbrook was a small town with a volunteer fire department. The nearest professional fire station was 20 miles away in the next town. It might be 15 or 20 minutes before firefighters could reach them. She looked up at the ceiling again. Flames were now visible through several gaps in the tiles. The fire was spreading faster than she had hoped. 15 minutes might be too long. The sirens were getting closer, but the fire was also getting worse. Miracle could see flames dancing between the ceiling joists, and the temperature in the room was rising. She needed to make decisions that would keep these 14 people alive. Everyone, we need to move, she announced. The corner by the old doorway is going to be safest. The fire is concentrated over the main part of the room. But you said to stay in the center, protested Mr. Williams, a man in his 60s. Situations change, Miracle replied calmly. In a fire, you have to keep adapting. Follow me and stay low. The group crawled and crouched their way to the back corner where Miracle had examined the blocked doorway. The air was a little cleaner here, and they were farther from the worst of the flames. Now, Miracle said, we're going to make this space as safe as possible. Alex, I need you and Mr. Santos to help me move that table over here. We're going to create a shelter. They dragged a heavy wooden table to their corner and turned it on its side, creating a barrier between them and the main fire. Miracle then had them gather chairs and other furniture to extend their protective barrier. Ladies, I need you to gather all the tablecloths and napkins you can find. Wet them with any remaining water. We'll use them to cover gaps in our shelter. Within 10 minutes, they had created a small, relatively protected space. The makeshift shelter was not perfect, but it would help keep out some of the smoke and heat. This is amazing, said Maria Santos. How did you know to do all this? Experience, Miracle replied simply. I've been in situations like this before. The sirens were much closer now. Through the smoke, Miracle could see flashing red and blue lights outside the windows. The volunteer fire department had arrived. They're here, Alex shouted. Yes, but it will still take time for them to reach us, Miracle explained. They have to assess the situation, set up their equipment, and figure out the safest way to get to us. We need to be patient. But patience was becoming difficult. The fire above them was getting more intense. Burning pieces of ceiling tile were starting to fall more frequently. The temperature was rising steadily. Miracle heard voices outside, firefighters shouting to each other, establishing their plan of attack. She recognized the sounds and procedures. It brought back memories of standing outside burning buildings, preparing to go inside and save people. Suddenly, a section of ceiling about 10 feet away from their shelter collapsed. Burning beams crashed to the floor, sending up showers of sparks and filling the room with dense smoke. Several people in the shelter screamed. Mrs. Patterson started crying. The teenager, Alex, was breathing rapidly, beginning to panic. Everyone stay calm, Miracle said firmly. That collapse actually helps us. It gives the fire more room to burn upward instead of spreading sideways. We're still safe in our corner. She was not entirely sure this was true, but she knew that keeping morale up was crucial for survival. Panic killed people faster than fire sometimes. Alex, she said to the teenager, I need you to help me with something important. Can you do that? Yes, Alex stammered. I need you to count everyone in our group every 2 minutes. Can you do that? Make sure all 14 people are still here and still okay. Giving Alex a specific job to focus on would help control his panic. It was an old trick she had learned during her firefighter training. Mrs. Patterson, Miracle continued, you know this town better than anyone. When the firefighters get to us, you can help them understand the building layout, okay? One by one, she gave each person a small task or responsibility. It kept their minds focused on something other than fear, and it made them feel like they were contributing to their own rescue. Outside, she could hear the firefighters getting closer. Water was being sprayed on the building. Equipment was being moved around. Professional voices giving professional commands. But she could also hear something else, a sound that made her heart race with worry. It was a deep creaking and groaning sound coming from the building's main support beams. The fire had been burning for over 30 minutes now. The old wooden structure was being severely weakened. There was a real possibility that part of the building could collapse before the firefighters reached them. Miracle looked around their shelter one more time, checking for anything that could be improved. Then she made a decision that surprised even her. "Everyone," she said, "there's something I need to tell you." "My name is Miracle Thompson," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I used to be Captain Thompson of the Metro City Fire Department. I was a firefighter for 22 years before I moved here." The group stared at her in amazement. Even through their fear and the smoke, this revelation was stunning. "You're a real firefighter?" Alex asked. "I was," Miracle replied. "I retired 5 years ago and came here to start a new life. But right now, that experience is what's going to keep us all alive." Maria Santos was crying, but now they seemed like tears of relief rather than fear. "Thank God you're here. Thank God you know what to do." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" asked Mr. Williams. Miracle hesitated. The honest answer was complicated. Trauma, guilt, fear, the need to run away from a life that had become too painful. But this was not the time for that entire story. "Sometimes people need to start over," she said simply. "But I never forgot my training, and I never stopped caring about people's safety." A loud crash from somewhere else in the building interrupted their conversation. More of the ceiling had collapsed, though not near their shelter. The groaning sounds were getting worse. "Captain Thompson," Mrs. Patterson said. "What do we do now?" Hearing her old title spoken aloud sent a jolt through Miracle's system. For 5 years, she had been just Miracle, the bookstore owner. She had forgotten how it felt to be someone people looked to for answers in a crisis. "Now we wait," she said, "but we wait smart. Everyone check your breathing. If the smoke gets too thick, get as low as possible. Cover your mouth and nose completely. Mr. Williams, you have heart medication, right? Are you feeling okay?" "Yes, I'm all right. A little scared, but okay." "Good. Maria, how are you doing?" "Better now that I know you're really a firefighter. I feel like we have a chance." Miracle smiled. "We have better than a chance. We're going to be fine." Outside, the sounds of the firefighting operation were getting more intense. She could hear the distinctive sound of a ladder truck being positioned. Water was hitting the building from multiple directions now. Most importantly, she heard voices getting closer to their location. "Fire department," a voice called from somewhere beyond the blocked entrances. "Is anyone still inside?" "Here," Miracle shouted back. 15 people in the back corner. We're sheltered but trapped." "How many injuries?" the voice called back. "No injuries." "Everyone is mobile. We're coming to get you. Stay where you are." Miracle felt a surge of professional pride. The firefighters outside were following proper procedure, establishing communication with trapped victims, getting a count of people, assessing medical needs before attempting rescue. These were good firefighters. "How long until they reach us?" Alex asked. Miracle listened to the sounds outside. Chainsaws starting up. They were cutting through debris. Heavy equipment being moved. Multiple voices coordinating the rescue operation. "Probably 10 to 15 minutes, she estimated. They have to clear the blocked entrances safely. They can't just smash through because they might cause more collapse." "Will the building hold that long?" Maria asked. Miracle looked up at what remained of the ceiling above them. More flames were visible, and the supporting beams were definitely stressed. But the building had stood for 80 years. The main walls were solid brick and concrete block. The steel support columns were still intact. "Yes," she said with confidence. "This building is tougher than it looks." But even as she spoke, she was mentally preparing backup plans. If the ceiling above their shelter started to collapse, where would they move? If the smoke got too thick, how would they improve their air supply? If someone had a medical emergency, what would she do? These were the kind of calculations she had made automatically for 22 years as a firefighter. It felt strange to be making them again, but also familiar, natural. Right. Captain Thompson, Mrs. Patterson said quietly, I'm glad you moved to our town. Even if we didn't know who you really were. I'm glad too, Miracle replied, and realized she meant it. For 5 years, she had thought of her old life as something to escape from. But right now, surrounded by 14 people who were depending on her knowledge and experience, she understood something new. She had not lost her identity when she left the fire department. She had just been waiting for the right moment to remember who she really was. The sound of chainsaws grew louder. Through gaps in their makeshift shelter, Miracle could see bright lights moving outside the building. The firefighters were working systematically to clear a path to the trapped group. Fire department! We're almost through, the voice called again. Everyone stay calm. We're ready, Miracle called back. She turned to her group. Okay, everyone, when they reach us, we're going to exit in an organized way. No rushing, no pushing. I'll go first to help coordinate with the firefighters, then the rest of you will follow. Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Williams, you'll go next because you might need extra assistance. Everyone understand? They all nodded. After 45 minutes trapped together, they had become a team. They trusted her completely. The sound of falling debris came from the direction of the blocked side entrance. A new voice called out, much closer than before. This is Captain Rodriguez, Metro Fire Department. We've got a clear path. Are you ready to move? Miracle felt her heart skip. Captain Rodriguez, she knew that name. He had been a lieutenant when she was still with the department. Now he was captain, leading the rescue operation. This is Captain Thompson, she called back. 15 people ready for evacuation. There was a moment of silence on the other side. Then, Captain Miracle Thompson? Metro Fire? That's right. Well, I'll be damned. We're coming through now. Bright flashlights appeared through the cleared entrance. 3 firefighters in full gear entered the smoky room, moving quickly but carefully. Captain Rodriguez led the way. Captain Thompson, he said as he reached their shelter. His voice held amazement and respect. What are you doing here? Long story, Miracle replied. Let's get these people out first. Copy that. We've got ambulances standing by. EMS will check everyone once we get outside. The evacuation began immediately. Captain Rodriguez and his team had brought additional masks and oxygen bottles for anyone who needed them. The path they had cleared led through the side entrance, where the debris had been carefully removed. Mrs. Patterson and Mr. Williams went first, each assisted by a firefighter. Then the other adults, one by one. Alex went near the end, his teenage excitement temporarily overcoming his earlier fear. This is so cool, he said to one of the firefighters. I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. We can always use good people, the firefighter replied with a smile. Maria Santos was the last civilian to leave. As she passed Miracle, she squeezed her hand. Thank you, she whispered. You saved all our lives. Finally, it was just Miracle and the 3 Metro firefighters left in the burning building. Captain Rodriguez said, with all due respect, we need to get you out of here now. This building's not going to hold much longer. Miracle looked around one last time at the community center where she had just spent the most intense hour of the past 5 years. The building that had brought her back to who she really was. Let's go, she said. They moved quickly through the cleared path and out into the fresh night air. Miracle had forgotten how good clean air could smell after breathing smoke for so long. Outside, the scene was controlled chaos. 4 fire trucks, 2 ambulances, multiple police cars, and what looked like half the town of Millbrook standing behind the safety barriers. As soon as Miracle emerged from the building, a cheer went up from the crowd. There she is, someone called out. There's our hero! Miracle saw familiar faces in the crowd. Jenny from the post office, Mr. Park from the hardware store, and dozens of other people she had served at her bookstore. Many were still in their wedding clothes, though now rumpled and smoky. Sarah Martinez, still in her wedding dress, ran toward Miracle with tears streaming down her face. "You saved our wedding!" Sarah cried, embracing her tightly. "You saved everyone!" Tom Wilson was right behind his new wife. "We can't thank you enough. When we saw you take charge in there, we knew we were going to be okay." An EMT approached with an oxygen mask. "Ma'am, we need to check you out. You've been breathing smoke for over an hour." Miracle accepted the oxygen gratefully. Her throat was raw, and she was more tired than she had realized. As the EMT checked her vital signs, Captain Rodriguez approached. "Captain Thompson," he said formally, "I need to ask you about what happened in there. The survivors are saying you organized the evacuation and kept them alive. They're saying you knew exactly what to do." "I did what anyone would do," Miracle replied. "No," Rodriguez shook his head. "What you did in there, that was professional level work. Creating shelter, managing the group, keeping everyone calm and organized, the way you positioned them in the safest part of the building. That knowledge doesn't come from reading books." The EMT finished his examination. "She's okay," he announced. "Some smoke inhalation, but nothing serious. She should rest and drink lots of water." As the EMT moved away, more of the rescued people approached to thank Miracle. Each had a story about how she had helped them, guiding them to safety, giving them jobs to keep them calm, sharing her water and encouragement. "You were like an angel," Mrs. Patterson said. "Like God sent you to take care of us." Alex, the teenager, was practically bouncing with excitement. "You were so cool in there. You knew exactly what to do. Are you really a firefighter?" Before Miracle could answer, Captain Rodriguez spoke up. "She's one of the best firefighters I ever worked with. Captain Thompson was a legend at Metro Fire. She saved hundreds of lives during her career." A murmur went through the crowd. The quiet bookstore owner they had known for 5 years was actually a hero with a distinguished career in the fire service. "Why didn't you tell us?" Jenny asked. Miracle looked at all the faces surrounding her. People who had become her friends and neighbors, people she had just risked her life to save. They deserved an honest answer. "I came here because I needed to get away from that life," she said quietly. "I had a bad experience. I lost someone I was trying to save, and I couldn't handle it anymore. I thought I was done being a firefighter. But you saved us," Maria Santos said. "You saved all of us." "I guess some things you never really stop being," Miracle replied. The next morning, Miracle woke up in her apartment above the bakery. Her throat was still sore, and her clothes still smelled like smoke. But she was alive. They were all alive. She made coffee and stood at her window looking at the community center. In the daylight, the damage was shocking. Half the roof was gone, and the walls were blackened with soot. The building that had been so beautiful just 12 hours ago was now a burned-out shell, but everyone had made it out alive. That was what mattered. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Captain Rodriguez, now out of his firefighting gear and wearing a regular uniform. "Good morning, Captain Thompson. How are you feeling?" "Sore, but fine. Would you like some coffee?" "That would be great." They sat at her small kitchen table. Rodriguez looked around the apartment, taking in the simple furniture and walls lined with books. "This is quite a change from the firehouse," he observed. "It was supposed to be," Miracle replied. "I wanted something completely different." "Can I ask what happened?" "Why you left?" Everyone at Metro always wondered. "You just disappeared one day." Miracle stared into her coffee cup. She had not talked about that day in 5 years, but somehow it felt safe to tell Rodriguez. He would understand. It was the Riverside Apartments fire. Do you remember it? Rodriguez nodded grimly. 4-story building. Family trapped on the top floor. I got to them, but the ceiling came down while I was trying to get the little girl out. A beam fell and blocked my path. I could hear her calling for help, but I couldn't reach her. Miracle's voice became quiet. She died because I wasn't fast enough. That wasn't your fault, Rodriguez said firmly. I read the report. That building was a death trap. The landlord had ignored safety violations for years. No one could have saved that child. Maybe. But I kept hearing her voice in my dreams. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate. I was dangerous to my crew and to the people I was supposed to save. So I left. They sat in silence for a moment. Rodriguez understood the weight of guilt that firefighters carried. They all had calls that haunted them. What you did last night, Rodriguez said finally, that was incredible. You organized a perfect evacuation under impossible conditions. You kept 15 people alive for almost an hour in a burning building. You did everything right. It felt different this time, Miracle admitted. I wasn't afraid. I was just focused on what needed to be done. That's because you're a natural leader. You always were. The fear you felt after Riverside, that was trauma, not weakness. But you still have the skills and the instincts. Another knock at the door interrupted them. This time it was Tom Wilson, the groom from the wedding. I'm sorry to bother you, Tom said, but there are some people downstairs who want to talk to you. Miracle looked out her window and saw a small crowd gathered on the street below. Some were people from the wedding, but others were townspeople she recognized from her bookstore. What do they want? She asked. To thank you, Tom replied, and to ask you something important. The three of them went downstairs. The crowd included most of the people Miracle had rescued, plus Sarah Martinez, still wearing her engagement ring, but now in regular clothes. Mr. Park, Jenny, Mrs. Henderson, and at least 20 other Millbrook residents were there too. We've been talking, Sarah announced, and we have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? Millbrook doesn't have a fire department, Mr. Park explained. We've always depended on mutual aid from other towns. Last night, it took almost 20 minutes for help to arrive. If you hadn't been there, Maria Santos added, we would all be dead. Jenny stepped forward. We want to start our own volunteer fire department, and we want you to be our chief. Miracle was speechless. The idea had never occurred to her. I don't know, she said slowly. I left that life behind. Did you? Asked Alex, the teenager. Because last night you were every inch a firefighter. You saved 15 lives. The town council has already approved the idea in principle. Tom added, we can get funding, equipment, training. We just need someone who knows what they're doing to lead us. Captain Rodriguez spoke up. If it helps, Metro Fire would be happy to assist with training and equipment. We believe in supporting volunteer departments. You don't have to give up your bookstore, Sarah said. Volunteer departments work around people's regular jobs. You could do both. Miracle looked at all the faces around her, people who had become important to her over the past 5 years, people whose lives she had saved just last night. For 5 years, she had been running away from who she was. Maybe it was time to start running toward who she could be. I need some time to think about it, she said finally. Of course, Tom replied. Take all the time you need. But Miracle, we need you. This town needs you.
For 3 days, Miracle thought about the town's offer. She continued running her bookstore, but customers kept coming in to talk about the fire and the proposed volunteer fire department. Everyone had an opinion. You should do it, Mrs. Henderson said while buying her weekly romance novels. You have a gift for helping people. It's up to you, said Mr. Garcia from the restaurant, "but this town has never had anyone like you before." "I think it would be amazing," Jenny added. "Imagine if we had our own fire department. We'd be so much safer." Even people who had not been at the wedding had heard the story. The teenage grocery store clerk asked if she could join the volunteer department when she turned 18. The bank manager wanted to know if they would also handle medical emergencies. On Thursday evening, Miracle sat in her apartment reading a book about fire department administration that she had ordered online. Despite her uncertainty, she found herself making mental notes about equipment needs, training schedules, and budget requirements. A knock at her door interrupted her reading. She opened it to find Alex, the teenager from the wedding. "Hi, Miss Thompson. Can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course. Come in." Alex sat nervously on her couch. "I wanted to ask you something. If you do become the fire chief, could I join? I mean, I'm only 17, but I'll be 18 in 4 months." "Why do you want to be a firefighter, Alex?" "Because of what I saw that night. The way you took charge, the way you helped everyone. You made the scariest situation I've ever been in feel manageable. You gave us hope when we thought we were going to die." Miracle studied the young man's face. She saw genuine enthusiasm, not just teenage excitement. "Being a firefighter is dangerous work," she said. "It's also difficult and sometimes heartbreaking. Are you sure you understand what you'd be signing up for?" "I understand that people need help sometimes, and I want to be the kind of person who can help them, like you." After Alex left, Miracle made herself a cup of tea and sat by her window. Below, she could see the blackened ruins of the community center. The town was already making plans to rebuild it, but the new building would have better fire safety systems. She thought about Alex's words. He wanted to be the kind of person who can help. For 22 years, that had been her identity. For 5 years, she had tried to be someone else. But last Tuesday night had shown her that some parts of herself could not be changed, only temporarily hidden. On Friday morning, Captain Rodriguez stopped by the bookstore again. "Have you made a decision?" he asked. "I'm still thinking," Miracle replied. "Can I ask you something?" "Do you think I'm ready to lead again, after what happened 5 years ago?" Rodriguez considered the question seriously. "What you did Tuesday night, that wasn't just technical skill. You managed 15 scared people in a life-threatening situation. You kept them calm, organized, and alive. That takes emotional strength, not just knowledge. But what if I freeze up again? What if I can't handle the pressure? Then you'll have a team to support you. That's the difference between career firefighting and volunteer work. In a small-town department, you're not carrying everything alone." That afternoon, Sarah Martinez came into the bookstore. She was back to work at the bank, but still looked tired from the ordeal. "How are you feeling?" Miracle asked. "Better. Tom and I have decided to postpone our honeymoon until next month. We want to help with the fire department project." Sarah paused. "Have you decided?" "I'm close to a decision. Can I tell you something? When that ceiling started collapsing and we were all trapped, I thought we were going to die. But then you started giving orders, and suddenly everything felt possible again. You have this way of making people believe they can handle things. You all handled it yourselves. I just gave you a little guidance." "No." Sarah shook her head. "It was more than that. You made us feel safe when we weren't safe. You made us feel strong when we felt helpless. That's not something you can learn from books." That evening, Miracle walked through downtown Millbrook. It was a small town, but it was home to almost 3,000 people. Families with children, elderly residents who had lived here their whole lives, young couples starting their careers, people who deserved to have emergency services when they needed them. She stopped in front of the ruins of the community center. In a few months, this would be a beautiful new building. But more importantly, it would have proper fire suppression systems, multiple exits, and modern electrical systems. The town was learning from what had happened. Maybe she could learn from it too. On Saturday morning, Miracle called Tom Wilson. "I've made my decision," she said. "I'll do it. I'll be your fire chief." The excitement in Tom's voice was obvious. "That's fantastic. When can we start?" "Right away, but I have some conditions." "Name them." "First, everyone who wants to join has to complete proper training. No shortcuts, no exceptions. Second, we do everything by the book. Safety protocols, equipment maintenance, everything. Third, I keep running my bookstore. The fire department will be part-time for me." "Absolutely. Whatever you need."
And Tom? We're going to start with basic firefighting, but I want to expand into medical emergency response too. This town needs a complete emergency services program. I love that idea. When do we begin? Miracle smiled. How about Monday? On Monday morning, Miracle opened her bookstore as usual. But at 10 a.m., she hung a sign that said, "Back in 30 minutes," and walked to the town hall for her first official meeting as Millbrook's new volunteer fire chief. The conference room was packed. Tom and Sarah were there, along with Alex and Maria Santos. Mr. Park had come, along with Jenny and several other people from the wedding. But there were also people Miracle had not expected. The bank manager, 2 teachers from the elementary school, a nurse from the clinic, and several others. "This is everyone who wants to volunteer?" Miracle asked. "This is just the beginning," Tom replied. "Word is spreading. We've had calls from people in neighboring towns, too." Miracle looked around the room. 18 people, ranging in age from Alex at 17 to Mr. Park at 62. Different backgrounds, different skill levels, but all united by the desire to help their community. "Before we go any further," Miracle said, "I want everyone to understand what volunteering for the fire department means. You'll be responding to emergencies at all hours. You'll see things that are difficult and sometimes tragic. You'll put yourselves in danger to help others. This is not a social club or a hobby. This is a serious commitment." Several people nodded solemnly. No one left the room. "Good," Miracle continued. "Now let's talk about what we need to do." She had spent the weekend creating a comprehensive plan. First, everyone would need basic EMT training. Then, firefighting fundamentals. Then, specialized training based on individual aptitudes and interests. "How long will all this take?" asked the nurse, whose name was Linda Chen. 6 months for basic certification, a year to be fully operational, 2 years to be excellent. "That seems like a long time," Alex said. "Alex," Miracle replied, "last Tuesday night, would you have wanted to be rescued by people who had only trained for a few weeks?" "No, ma'am." "Exactly. We're going to do this right." The town had already identified a location for the firehouse, an empty building that used to be a small factory. With some renovation, it would have space for equipment, training, and administrative offices. "What about equipment?" Maria asked. "Captain Rodriguez from Metro Fire is helping us identify what we need and where to get it. Some will be new, some will be donated or purchased used from departments that are upgrading." Miracle handed out information packets she had prepared. Training schedules, equipment lists, budget projections, and organizational charts. "Everyone take this home and read it carefully. If you're still committed after seeing what's involved, we'll start basic EMT training next Monday." As people filed out of the room, Alex approached Miracle. "Chief Thompson, can I ask you something?" "Sure, Alex. Are you scared about leading all this?" Miracle considered the question honestly. "A little. But being scared isn't always bad. It keeps you careful and focused. The key is not letting fear stop you from doing what needs to be done. Is that what happened to you before? When you left firefighting? That's part of it. But Alex, failing at something doesn't mean you can't succeed at it later. Sometimes we need time to grow and learn before we're ready for certain challenges. Alex nodded thoughtfully. I'm really excited to learn from you. I'm excited to teach you. But remember, we're all going to be learning together. I've never run a volunteer department before. We'll figure it out as we go. 3 months later, the Millbrook Volunteer Fire Department was becoming a reality. The firehouse renovation was nearly complete. 8 volunteers had finished their basic EMT training, with 10 more in progress. They had purchased their first fire truck, a used engine from a department 2 counties over that was upgrading their fleet. Miracle found herself busier than she had been in years. Mornings at the bookstore, afternoons at the firehouse for training or administrative work, evenings studying new fire science techniques and emergency management protocols. But she was happier than she had been in years, too. You look different, Mrs. Henderson observed while buying her latest romance novel. You look energetic. I feel useful again, Miracle replied. It's a good feeling. The volunteers were progressing well. Alex had turned 18 and was proving to be a natural leader among the younger volunteers. Linda Chen was becoming their medical specialist. Mr. Park, despite his age, was excellent at equipment maintenance and inventory management. When do you think we'll be ready for our first call? Alex asked during their Thursday evening training session. Soon, Miracle replied. But remember, our first call might not be a fire. We're more likely to respond to a car accident or a medical emergency. As if summoned by her words, the new emergency radio crackled to life. Millbrook Fire, this is County Dispatch. Are you available for a motor vehicle accident on Route 12, mile marker 15? Everyone in the firehouse froze. This was it, their first real call. Miracle keyed the radio. County Dispatch, Millbrook Fire is responding. What do we have? Single vehicle accident, car versus tree. Driver trapped, unknown injuries. County EMS is en route but 15 minutes out. Copy that. Millbrook Engine 1 responding. Miracle looked around at her volunteers. She saw excitement, nervousness, and determination. This is what we trained for, she announced. Alex, you're driving. Linda, you're my medical officer. Tom and Maria, you're my rescue team. Everyone else, support as needed. Let's go save someone. The drive to the accident scene took 8 minutes. As they approached, they could see a sedan wrapped around a large oak tree. The driver's side was severely damaged, and steam was rising from the engine compartment. Scene safety first, Miracle reminded her team as they stopped. Check for hazards before we approach the vehicle. They quickly assessed the situation. No fire, no electrical hazards, no other vehicles involved. The driver appeared to be conscious, but trapped by the damaged door and steering column. Ma'am, can you hear me? Linda called to the driver as she approached the car. I'm Linda from the Millbrook Fire Department. We're here to help you. I can't move my legs, the woman replied. She was elderly, probably in her 70s. I think I'm hurt pretty bad. While Linda began her medical assessment, Miracle and her rescue team worked on accessing the vehicle. The door was jammed, but they had trained for this scenario. Tom, get the hydraulic spreaders. Maria, help me stabilize the vehicle. Working together with precision that surprised even Miracle, the team safely extracted the woman from the car within 20 minutes. By the time County EMS arrived, they had her on a backboard with her injuries stabilized. Nice work, the EMS supervisor told Miracle. Clean extraction, good patient care. How long has your department been operational? This was our first call, Miracle replied. The supervisor looked impressed. Really? Your team works like they've been doing this for years. As they cleaned up and prepared to leave the scene, Alex approached Miracle. "Chief, that was incredible. We actually saved someone." "We did," Miracle agreed. "How does it feel?" "Like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing with my life." Miracle smiled. She remembered that feeling, the absolute certainty that you were in the right place, doing the right thing, making a difference that mattered. "That's the feeling you hold on to," she told Alex. "That's what will get you through the difficult calls." Over the next 6 months, the Millbrook Volunteer Fire Department responded to 47 calls. Car accidents, medical emergencies, a few small fires, and one dramatic rescue when a hiker fell into a ravine behind the town. With each call, the team grew more confident and skilled. They developed their own rhythms and procedures. They learned to work together seamlessly, anticipating each other's needs and actions. Miracle found herself becoming not just their chief, but their mentor and guide. She helped Alex develop his leadership skills. She worked with Linda to expand their medical capabilities. She taught all of them about scene safety, decision-making under pressure, and the importance of taking care of each other. "You're a natural teacher," Captain Rodriguez observed during one of his visits to assess their progress. "These volunteers are performing at a level I'd expect from career firefighters with twice their experience." "They're good people," Miracle replied. "They care about doing the job right." "It's more than that. They trust you completely. They know you'll keep them safe and make good decisions. That's not something you can teach. That's leadership." The town was taking notice, too. The response times for emergency calls had improved dramatically. The volunteer department was handling routine calls that previously would have required mutual aid from other departments. People felt safer knowing that help was close by. But Miracle knew that their biggest test was still coming. They had not yet faced a major fire, the kind of situation that would truly challenge their skills and courage. That test came on a cold February morning. Miracle was opening her bookstore when she heard the fire alarm. Not the electronic tone from their radios, but the old mechanical siren on top of the firehouse that was used for major calls. She locked the store and ran toward the firehouse. Other volunteers were already arriving from different directions. Alex was there first, already starting the engine. Linda was right behind him. "What do we have?" Miracle called as she climbed into the truck. "Structure fire on Elm Street," Tom replied, monitoring the radio. "The Kowalski house. Fully involved, possible people trapped." Miracle felt her heart rate increase. The Kowalski family had 3 young children. This could be very serious. As they turned onto Elm Street, they could see the orange glow against the morning sky. Smoke was visible from 6 blocks away. When they arrived at the scene, Miracle's training and experience took over immediately. The 2-story house was fully engulfed in flames. Neighbors were gathered across the street, some of them crying. "Where's the family?" Miracle asked Mrs. Peterson, who lived next door. "The parents and 2 kids got out, but they can't find Tommy." "He's only 8. They think he might still be inside." Miracle felt a familiar chill. A child trapped in a burning building. The scenario that had haunted her dreams for 5 years. But this time was different. This time she had a team she trusted. This time she was ready. "Alex, get a line ready for interior attack. Linda, set up triage for the family members. Tom and Maria, you're coming with me. We're going to find that boy." "Chief," Alex said quietly, "are you sure about this?" "The fire's pretty advanced." Miracle looked at her young protege. She saw concern in his eyes, not for his own safety, but for hers. He knew about her past, about why she had left firefighting before. "Alex," she said calmly, "this is what we do. This is why we trained so hard. We go into dangerous places to bring people out safely." She turned to address the whole team. Everyone stays together. We follow protocols. We watch out for each other. And we bring that little boy home to his family. As they prepared to enter the burning house, Miracle felt something she had not experienced in 5 years. Not fear, not guilt, not the weight of past failures. She felt ready. The interior of the Kowalski house was hell. Smoke so thick they could barely see their hands in front of their faces. Heat that penetrated even their protective gear. The sound of flames consuming everything the family had owned. But Miracle moved through it with the confidence of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. Behind her, Tom and Maria followed her lead, searching systematically through each room. "Tommy," Miracle called out. "Tommy, if you can hear me, make some noise." They cleared the first floor methodically. Living room, kitchen, dining room, bathroom. No sign of the boy. The staircase to the second floor was still passable, but barely. "Chief," Tom's voice came through her radio, "stairs are getting sketchy. We need to move fast." "Copy that. Stay close." They climbed to the second floor. The heat was incredible here, and the floor was starting to feel unstable under their feet. They had maybe 5 minutes before conditions became impossible. "Tommy!" Miracle called again. This time they heard something, a faint sound from the back bedroom. They moved quickly down the hallway, checking each room. In the master bedroom, they found nothing. In the first child's room, nothing. But in the back bedroom, Maria's thermal imaging camera picked up a heat signature. "Got something," Maria announced. They forced open the door to find 8-year-old Tommy Kowalski huddled in the closet, conscious but barely responsive from smoke inhalation. "Tommy, I'm Miracle from the fire department," she said, scooping him up. "We're going to get you out of here." But as they turned to leave, they heard a sound that every firefighter dreads, the groaning and cracking of structural failure. The hallway floor was beginning to sag. "Stairs are gone," Tom reported from the hallway. "We need another way out." Miracle's mind raced through the options. The window in this room faced the backyard. It was a second-story drop, but there might be a way. "Maria, can you reach Alex on the radio? Tell him to position the ladder truck in the backyard, south side of the house." While Maria coordinated with the team outside, Miracle checked Tommy's condition. He was breathing, but weak. They needed to get him to fresh air immediately. "Chief, ladder's in position." Alex's voice came through the radio. Miracle broke out the bedroom window with her axe. Cool, fresh air rushed in, a welcome relief from the suffocating heat and smoke. Looking down, she could see Alex at the top of the ladder, ready to receive them. "Tom, you go first," she ordered. "Maria, you hand Tommy down to Tom, then follow. I'll be right behind you." "Chief, you should go first," Maria protested. "That's not how this works," Miracle replied firmly. "Team leader goes last." That's the rule. One by one, they made their way down the ladder. Tommy was passed safely from Maria to Tom, to Alex, to the waiting EMTS below. Maria followed, then Tom. As Miracle stepped onto the ladder, she heard another loud crack from inside the house. The ceiling of the bedroom collapsed just as she cleared the window. 30 seconds later, she was on solid ground, breathing fresh air, watching as EMTs worked to stabilize Tommy Kowalski. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked Linda, who was assisting with the boy's care. "He'll be fine," Linda replied with a smile. "Smoke inhalation, but nothing serious. You got to him in time." Miracle looked around at her team. They were dirty, tired, and soaked with sweat, but they were all safe. And they had saved a child's life. "Good work, everyone," she said quietly. Alex appeared at her side. "Chief, that was amazing. The way you stayed calm, made decisions, kept us all safe while we rescued Tommy. That was like something out of a movie. That was just good firefighting, Miracle replied. That was what we trained for. No, Alex shook his head. That was leadership. That was you showing us what it meant. The rescue of Tommy Kowalski made the front page of the county newspaper. The headline read, "New Volunteer Fire Department Saves Child in Dramatic Rescue." The article described the rescue in detail and included interviews with the Kowalski family and several volunteers. But more importantly for Miracle, the rescue proved something to herself. She was ready to be a firefighter again. The fear and guilt that had driven her away 5 years ago had been replaced by confidence and purpose. 2 weeks after the fire, she received a surprise visit at her bookstore. Chief Thompson? The man at the door was wearing a uniform she recognized, a district fire chief from the Regional Fire Authority. "I'm Chief Martinez from the Regional Fire Authority. I was hoping we could talk."
Of course. Come in. Chief Martinez looked around the bookstore with interest. This is quite a change from firefighting. It was supposed to be, Miracle replied, but things change. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. We've been following the progress of your volunteer department. Very impressive work. The Kowalski rescue was textbook perfect. We had good training and good people. We have a proposition for you, Chief Martinez continued. We're opening a new regional training center, and we're looking for someone to run it. Someone with operational experience and a proven ability to develop new firefighters. Miracle was surprised. You want me to leave Millbrook? Not exactly. The training center would be located here in the county. You could keep your volunteer department and your bookstore if you wanted, but you'd also be training firefighters from departments throughout the region. It was an intriguing offer, teaching firefighting skills on a larger scale, sharing knowledge with departments across several counties. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. After Chief Martinez left, Miracle sat in her store thinking about the offer. A year ago, she could never have imagined returning to professional firefighting. Now, she was being offered a chance to influence fire service throughout the region. That evening at the firehouse, she mentioned the offer to her volunteers. You should do it, Alex said immediately. Think of how many firefighters you could train. How many lives you could save indirectly. But what about our department? Maria asked. We need you here. The department will be fine, Miracle assured her. Alex is ready to be assistant chief. Linda could be our training officer. Tom could handle administration. You've all grown into leaders. It's not about capability, Linda said. It's about wanting you to stay. You're our chief. You're our friend. Miracle looked around at the faces of her volunteers, people who had become like family to her over the past year, people who had trusted her to lead them, to teach them, to keep them safe. Nothing's decided yet, she said, and if I did take the position, I wouldn't be leaving. I'd still be your chief. I'd just be helping other departments too. Over the next week, Miracle thought carefully about the offer. She talked to Captain Rodriguez, who strongly encouraged her to accept. She talked to Tom and Sarah, who assured her the town would support whatever decision she made. But the conversation that influenced her most was with Mrs. Henderson. Dear, the elderly woman said while buying her weekly romance novels, can I give you some advice? Of course.
5 years ago, you came here running away from something. That was fine. Sometimes we need to run away to heal. But now you're not running anymore. You're choosing your path. That's very different. What do you think I should choose? I think you should choose to be who you really are. And who you really are is someone who saves lives and teaches others to save lives. This town will always be here. These people will always be your friends. But opportunities to make a big difference don't come along very often. That night, Miracle made her 1 year later Chief Miracle Thompson stood in front of a class of 40 new firefighter recruits at the Regional Fire Training Center. The state-of-the-art facility had been built just outside Millbrook, bringing jobs and recognition to the small town. "How many of you know why you want to be firefighters?" she asked the class. Most hands went up.
Good. Hold on to that reason, because there will be days when it's the only thing that gets you through. But also be prepared for that reason to evolve and grow as you gain experience. In the front row, she noticed a young woman who looked familiar. After class, the woman approached her. "Chief Thompson, I'm Katie Martinez. Sarah Martinez is my sister." "Of course." Sarah mentioned you were interested in firefighting. "I was inspired by what you did at Sarah's wedding, and then by the volunteer department you built. I want to learn to help people the way you do." Miracle smiled. The ripple effects of that night 2 years ago were still spreading. Her life had found a balance she never could have imagined. 3 days a week at the training center, developing curriculum and teaching new firefighters. 2 days a week running her bookstore, which had become a gathering place for both locals and visiting firefighters. Evenings and weekends with the Millbrook Volunteer Fire Department, which had grown to 25 active members and was considered a model program throughout the state. "Chief Thompson," Alex called from across the training yard. He was now assistant chief of the Millbrook department and also worked part-time as an instructor at the training center. "We've got a situation at the Millbrook Elementary School. Possible gas leak. They're requesting our hazmat team." Miracle felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. Even after all this time, emergency calls still triggered her protective instincts. "I'll meet you there," she told Alex. Then, turning to her class of recruits, she said, "Training exercise, everyone. Follow me to see how a real emergency response works." 20 minutes later, Miracle stood outside the elementary school coordinating the response. It turned out to be a minor gas leak from a kitchen appliance, easily contained and repaired. But watching her students observe the operation, she was reminded of how far she had come. 2 years ago, she had been a frightened former firefighter hiding in a small-town bookstore. Now she was training the next generation of emergency responders while continuing to serve her adopted community. "Chief," Katie Martinez approached her as they were packing up equipment. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "My sister told me you used to be afraid to fight fires again, after something bad happened in your previous job. How did you get past that fear?" Miracle considered the question carefully. It was one she was asked often by students and fellow firefighters. "I learned that fear isn't something you get past," she replied. "Fear is something you carry with you, but you don't let it make your decisions. The night of your sister's wedding, I was terrified. But there were people who needed help, and I was the only one there who knew what to do." So, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to do the right thing even when you're afraid. Courage is trusting your training and your team. Courage is accepting that you can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean you stop trying to save the ones you can. That evening, Miracle walked through downtown Millbrook. The community center had been rebuilt, beautiful and modern with state-of-the-art fire safety systems. The bookstore was thriving, now expanded to include a section on emergency preparedness and first aid. The firehouse was busy with volunteers training for their next certification level. She stopped at the memorial plaque that had been installed outside the community center. In recognition of Chief Miracle Thompson and the brave volunteers who saved 15 lives on the night of February 14th. Heroes are not born. They are made by the choices they make when others need them most. Mrs. Henderson appeared beside her, as if from nowhere. "Still reading that thing?" the elderly woman asked with a smile. "Still seems surreal," Miracle replied. "What does?" "The plaque?" "All of it. 2 years ago, I thought my life as a firefighter was over. I thought I was done being someone who could make a difference." Oh, honey. Mrs. Henderson laughed gently. You were making a difference every day in that bookstore. You just didn't know it yet. You recommended books that helped people through difficult times. You listened to their problems. You created a safe, welcoming space in the center of town. That's not the same as saving lives, isn't it? How many people did you help find hope in a good book? How many lonely people found friendship in your store? How many children discovered a love of reading because you took time to help them find the right story? Miracle had never thought of her bookstore years in those terms. The difference, Mrs. Henderson continued, is that now you're doing both. You're still the person who creates safe spaces and helps people find what they need, but you're also the person who runs into burning buildings. You don't have to choose between those parts of yourself. Epilogue. 5 years later. Chief Miracle Thompson closed the file on her desk and looked out the window of her office at the Regional Fire Training Center. 5 years had passed since the night that changed everything. The training center now graduated over 200 firefighters annually. The Millbrook Volunteer Fire Department had become a model program studied by departments across the country. Her bookstore remained a beloved gathering place in the town center. But the changes that mattered most were harder to measure. Alex had become a full-time career firefighter while maintaining his volunteer role in Millbrook. He was engaged to Linda Chen, and they were planning to start their own family. Katie Martinez had graduated from the training program and was now working as a professional firefighter in the state capitol. Tommy Kowalski, the 8-year-old boy they had rescued from the house fire, was now 13 and had joined the fire department's junior program. Chief Thompson? Her assistant knocked on the office door. There's someone here to see you. Miracle looked up to see a young woman in a firefighter's uniform standing in her doorway. The woman looked nervous but determined. Chief Thompson, my name is Jessica Rivers. I'm a new firefighter with Metro City Fire Department. How can I help you, Firefighter Rivers? I wanted to meet you because you saved my grandmother's life 5 years ago. Mrs. Henderson. She talks about you all the time. Miracle smiled, thinking of her elderly friend who still came to the bookstore every week for new romance novels. Mrs. Henderson is a remarkable woman, but I think you have it backwards. She's helped me far more than I ever helped her. She told me to tell you something, Jessica continued. She said to remind you that heroes don't retire, they just find new ways to serve. After Jessica left, Miracle returned to her work, but Mrs. Henderson's message stayed with her. It was true. She had never really retired from being a firefighter. She had just taken a detour through fear and healing before finding her way back to who she was meant to be. Her radio crackled with a familiar voice. Training Center, this is Millbrook Fire. We're responding to a vehicle accident on Route 12. ETA 5 minutes. Copy that, Millbrook Fire, Miracle responded. Training Center is standing by if you need additional resources. Thanks, Chief. We've got this one. Miracle smiled. They did have it. The volunteers she had trained were now training others. The knowledge and skills were spreading, creating a network of capable, confident emergency responders throughout the region. She thought about the girl she had failed to save 5 years ago at the Riverside Apartments. The guilt would always be there, a reminder of the weight of responsibility that came with emergency service. But it no longer defined her or limited her. Instead, she carried the memory of everyone she had helped save, the 15 people at the wedding, Tommy Kowalski, countless accident victims and medical emergencies, and most importantly, the hundreds of firefighters she had trained who would go on to save thousands more lives throughout their careers. That evening, Miracle walked home through the streets of Millbrook. The town had grown over the past 5 years, but it maintained its small-town character. People still waved to each other on the street. Children still played in the park. The community center hosted weddings and celebrations, with modern safety systems and multiple exits. She stopped at her bookstore and went inside. In the emergency preparedness section, she noticed a young mother reading a first aid manual while her toddler played quietly nearby. "Can I help you find anything?" Miracle asked. "I'm just trying to learn basic emergency skills," the woman replied. "You never know when someone might need help." "That's very wise," Miracle agreed. "Knowledge and preparation can make all the difference." As the woman and her child left with their book, Miracle realized that this was how real change happened. Not just through dramatic rescues and heroic moments, but through ordinary people learning skills, building confidence, and becoming ready to help when help was needed. She locked up the store and climbed the stairs to her apartment. Tomorrow would bring new students to train, new volunteers to mentor, new challenges to meet. But tonight, she would read a good book, drink a cup of tea, and rest in the knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged. Outside her window, the lights of Millbrook twinkled peacefully. Somewhere in the town, volunteer firefighters were standing ready to respond to emergencies. Somewhere, former students were serving their own communities. Somewhere, the chain of knowledge and service that she had helped forge was continuing to grow and strengthen. Miracle Thompson had found her way home, not to a place, but to a purpose. She was a firefighter, a teacher, a bookstore owner, a community leader, and a friend. She was someone who understood that heroism wasn't about being fearless, but about choosing to act despite fear. She was someone who knew that second chances weren't just given, they were earned through courage, persistence, and the willingness to trust in something larger than yourself. Most importantly, she was someone who had learned that running away from who you are only works temporarily. Eventually, life calls you back to your true self, and when that call comes, the only choice that leads to real happiness is to answer it. As she settled into her favorite chair with a book, Miracle smiled. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to serve, to teach, and to make a difference. Tonight she was content to be exactly who she was. Miracle Thompson, firefighter, teacher, friend, and guardian of a small town that had given her everything she needed to become herself again. The story that had begun with fear and retreat had become a story of courage and return. The bookstore owner who had hidden from her past had become the fire chief who embraced her future. The woman who thought her hero's journey was over had discovered that it was really just beginning. And in the quiet peace of her small apartment above the bakery, surrounded by books and memories, and the promise of tomorrow's challenges, Miracle Thompson closed her eyes and knew that she was home.